Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another review, and today we're going to be reviewing this 2018 Porsche GT2 RS. So the first thing I want to mention about this Porsche is that it does have the Y-Sack package. So it has a lot more carbon fiber than a regular GT2 RS. It is a absolutely beautiful car, and it's pretty much just a street legal race car, honestly. Now this red exterior paint on it is actually one of 8 options for this year, and the interior does have 3 options. We're going to be talking about the interior a little bit more towards the end of the walk around, but the 3 options for the interior are red, black, and gray leather. Now this does have the black leather with the red and black Alcantara. And one thing I also did want to mention, for anyone who isn't really too familiar with Porsches, the main difference between this newer GT2 RS and the GT3 RS is actually the engine. Now I am going to be talking more about the engine and the drivetrain in a second. Pretty much the GT3 RS has a 4-liter naturally aspirated flat 6-cylinder engine, whereas the GT2 RS actually has a 3.8-liter flat 6-cylinder engine, but it does have twin turbos, consequentially making this GT2 make a lot more power than the GT3. This GT2 actually does make 700 horsepower compared to the 520 that comes from the GT3. Now this 2018 GT2 RS is actually part of the newest generation, which were made from 2017 to 2019, and this generation is technically referred to as the 991. Now this new generation is pretty phenomenal. I mean, most of the pretty much all of the GT2s previously are phenomenal as well, but this new generation actually holds current lap records for street legal cars at, I believe, Willow Springs, but I also do know that last fall a GT2 RS MR, which is basically a GT2 RS with an aero package, slightly better suspension and better brakes, it pretty much set the street legal road car record at the Nürburgring with the sub 7-minute time of 6 minutes and 50.33 seconds, beating out other supercar competitors such as the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, the Lamborghini Huracan Performante, obviously the GT3 RS like I mentioned before, also the Porsche 918 Spyder, even beating out a hypercar that actually took the second fastest lap time recorded for a street legal car, and that was the McLaren P1 LM, which is honestly amazing because this Porsche is definitely an expensive car for sure, but that McLaren is a hell of a lot more pricey, and this Porsche still almost beat its lap time by a solid 3 seconds, which is honestly a pretty huge margin when it comes to record-setting lap times. Now going back to the looks of this car, this Porsche is also just as breathtaking when it comes to the visuals of this car. As you guys can see, like I mentioned before, you do have the red exterior paint color with the carbon fiber accents. Now pretty much the front hood of this car, I guess you could say, is all carbon fiber, so this is all exposed right here, then following it back up to the roof, and then obviously you do have the carbon fiber kind of like inlets back there, and also this wing. So this is actually a little personal touch that this owner did to this car. So normally these GT2s come with the carbon fiber wing, but they also have like a black painted Porsche wording on them. But as you guys could probably make out, I don't know if you guys could see, this owner actually got those letters wrapped in vinyl red to match the body paint of this car, which does look really, really awesome. So while we're on the topic of little personalized exterior touches that this owner did to this car, you can see obviously the center cap, that red has been filled in. Also the GT2 RS right there has been filled in. Normally they're not like that on these wheels. And also if we come around to this front lip, he has also got the GT2 RS lettering filled in with red as well. And it's just a bunch of little touches that definitely work really, really well together. And besides the personalized touches that the owner did after he actually got this car, there's a lot of personalization when it came to building and ordering this car. For example, obviously you do have the Y-Sack package, and he does have the exposed carbon side mirrors with that little triangle piece, which is not cheap, even though it's a little carbon fiber piece. Also, he does have the black handles. He did say that most Porsche GT2s that he sees actually has the body color door handles, so that actually is something pretty unique. So now moving on to the wheels and tires on this car. So again, it's all factory, and the owner actually did say that most of the GT2s actually come with magnesium wheels, which come in like a goldish color, but these aren't the magnesium wheels. These are different, but they're still factory wheels. So instead of that goldish color, you do have the kind of like matte black finish on the wheels. And honestly, I feel like it does complement the overall car better than like gold wheels. I don't know how gold wheels would really look on these. But anyways, in the front, you do have 20-inch by 9.5 wheels wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s. You see those tires a lot on different supercars. And in the front, those tires are 265s by 35s. Now in the rear, you do have a staggered setup. You do have 21 by 12.5-inch wheels, and they are, again, wrapped in those Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, except the rubber on the back is actually 325 by 30. So it definitely does have a little bit more width in the back to help for traction. Again, this car is rear-wheel drive, and it also is rear engine. But underneath the wheels, which is pretty awesome, you do have the really massive brakes that come on this car. Now in the rear, they're actually slightly smaller. They're 390 millimeter drilled carbon ceramic rotors with 4 piston calipers. And in the front, you do have 410 millimeter carbon ceramic rotors with 6 piston calipers. So now I want to get into a little bit more detail about the engine and the drivetrain of this car. Now we do have this back hood or trunk, whatever you want to call it, open, and you can literally see like really nothing. I mean, there's a couple holes in here underneath this carbon fiber panel. I think I see one of the blow-off valves under there, but pretty much besides like the little like inlets, the only other thing you have here is just the fans. Now the owner actually thinks they're exhaust fans just to get some heat out of the car, but honestly we don't really know for sure. But if you want to do anything to this car, first of all, you're probably not going to be the one working on it. It's probably going to be in a shop. But they take this entire carbon fiber piece off, plus this rear bumper here. Everything just comes right off, and then you can access pretty much the entire drivetrain, because again, it is rear-wheel drive and it is rear engine. So not just the engine, but like literally everything is back here, obviously, besides your front mechanical bits, like, you know, your front suspension and stuff like that, which is pretty obvious. But also what is pretty cool is that this engine is water cooled, and the owner did say that the water tank is actually isolated in the front of the car as well. So that being said, this 3.8 liter water cooled 4-valve per cylinder double overhead cam twin turbocharged engine makes a jaw dropping 700 horsepower at 7,000 RPMs and 552 foot-pounds of torque at 2,500 RPMs. Now that engine delivers that power through a 7-speed automated manual transmission. Now that is definitely one thing that's kind of interesting about this car, because when researching it, it's pretty much an automatic. You can put it into manual mode and like use the paddle shifters, but technically I guess they consider it an automated manual, which is really interesting to me. Again, it behaves exactly like an automatic would. But yeah, I definitely just find it that a little bit interesting, and honestly a little bit confusing as well. So if any of you guys actually know a little bit more about automated manual transmissions, definitely let me know down in the comments below. But besides that, this engine does redline at 8,250 RPMs, and this car does get propelled from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.7 seconds with the stock factory quarter-mile time of 10.5 seconds even, and a top speed of 211 miles per hour. I did just want to show you guys this. So this is something I actually didn't know about this car, but I just noticed it while filming. If you guys can see in there, I don't know if you guys could see it, but it's pretty much like a little flap in the exhaust. So this car does have variable exhaust from factory, which is another pretty cool feature, but also pretty common on modern day supercars. All right, so the last aspect I'm actually going to be talking about the drivetrain is inside this front here. You can actually see the water tank that I was talking about before. And honestly, just opening this up, it's actually a decent amount of storage space for a supercar, because it's actually like really, really deep. Normally you see storage compartments like this, except with not as much depth. So honestly, you can actually store a decent amount of stuff in here, which is pretty cool. All right, guys, so before, when I said that this GT2 was really spec'd out by the owner, this is where you're going to see it in the interior. So first thing, before I even go in the interior, you can see the illuminated GT2 RS. Plus underneath, I don't know if you guys could see that if the camera's picking it up, but you do have the aluminum pedals as well. And also the thing that's probably the most obvious is these seats. These are not standard seats. They're carbon fiber back, full-on race bucket seats. Again, they do say the YSEC RS on it, so it comes with the YSEC package. So now I'm actually going to take a seat in this driver's seat. Oh, another thing too, it does have carbon fiber floor mats as well, which is pretty insane. And yeah, there's really not a lot of room in this car, but it still is really cool to be in, and honestly pretty comfortable for a race car. You can see down here you have the standard fire extinguisher. This also actually came from Porsche. Plus you have all the carbon fiber trim in there too. You can see the WISEC badge on the carbon fiber trim. So these air vents, just to get them painted with the leather on the outside, was actually just over $1,700, which is just for like the 4 air vents kind of here right in the front of the car. And also another option, which I think is actually pretty cool, you do have the Porsche stopwatch up in the center here. You can tell it's a stop. It's not a regular clock. It just goes like, it kind of just counts the minutes. Plus you do have the regular digital clock in the center there. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm probably forgetting something because there's just so much stuff to talk about this car. Oh, also in the back here, I don't know if you guys could see that. I didn't mention it when I was on the outside of the car, but the owner does have a roll cage in this car. Now, the roll cages from Porsche factory are not compliant with the USA DOT, so he actually installed that himself. But yeah, besides that, guys, we're gonna take this thing out for a drive and I'll show you guys my initial reactions. Alright guys, so now I'm actually driving this GT2 RS. This is probably the tightest car, I guess you could say, that I've ever driven. Just everything from mechanically just to like how snug you're in the seat. And it's basically a full-blown track car. Like, that's what it's made for. Yeah, I mean, you can hear the turbos. It sounds really, really good being in this car. So I did just roll the windows down just so you guys might pick up a little bit more engine noise. Yeah. As soon as right now it's in auto mode, I'm not using the paddle shifters at all. But as soon as you give it a little bit, it downshifts, you hear the turbo spool up and you hear the power immediately. And it brakes phenomenal as well. I'm barely touching the brakes and it brings you right back down. Now, the only car that I've reviewed that has more power than this car was the Charger Hellcat that I did a couple months back. But I mean, you're comparing a Charger to a Porsche, and this is just so lightweight. This is definitely like by far probably the coolest car that I've been actually driving in my life. So now I actually do have it in the manual mode. Not really going to punch it, but I'm just going to downshift a little. Yeah. Everything is just so tight about this car. Even when it goes over potholes and everything, you just... it's definitely... it's one of those cars that, I mean, a lot of people, I feel like, just because you could buy it doesn't necessarily mean that you can handle this car. And I'm trying to think of words to say right now. I know I'm trying to give you guys as much information as possible, but I'm really just slipping up because I don't know what to say about this car. It's basically just a full-blown street legal race car. And I know that term definitely gets thrown around a lot nowadays because we do have a lot of impressive cars coming out. But honestly, again, this is definitely a supercar. It's in that category. But for what it's valued at, like, it's a pretty good bang for your buck as well. Because like I said before, you're getting something for probably just north of 300,000 US dollars. You're getting something that really beat the McLaren P1, which is, I think, either like a $1 million or $2 million car. And it beat it not by a very slim margin, but it beat it by almost 3 seconds around the Nürburgring. Wow. So one thing also I did want to mention is that this flat 6 with the twin turbos definitely gives it a very, very unique exhaust tone. Brought this thing out on the highway, and I actually did have to accelerate to get into traffic, and it's so effortless for this car to just accelerate on command. It's just the amount of power is it's definitely something that could be dangerous. And I'm in no way going to give this thing gas when I have the steering wheel turned even slightly, because one thing that is kind of infamous with different Porsche cars throughout the different generations is sometimes they haven't really engineered the turbo lag, I guess you could say, that well. And I know a lot of times with the older Porsches that are turbocharged, whether they're single turbocharged or twin turbocharged, sometimes they were known for the boost actually kicking in like mid-turn and just completely fishtailing the car and putting the driver into the grass. So that's definitely one thing that I have in the back of my head right now. I don't care how well engineered this car is, this modern car, but that is definitely one thing that I'm thinking about right now. So again, the little pulls that I'm doing with it here and there are just straight line. And one thing that is pretty cool, it does have the racing line in Alcantara on the steering wheel. I mean, I really don't know what to say. I know I'm all over the place with different topics of this car, but I mean, I'm completely blown away by it. It's really awesome. Now, one thing that is really cool, I've been driving it in manual for these last few miles or so, and it is extremely responsive. It is a dual clutch transmission, which is different, and I guess that does give it the edge over the Lamborghini Aventador, because the Aventador, the SVJ, is actually just single clutch. That definitely would explain why this car has such better lap times than that Aventador. Plus, I mean, all the other different factors. It's probably lighter weight, doesn't have the heavier V12. So naturally the revs are going to be a little bit higher just because I'm controlling it, and I'm getting a lot of exhaust pops, a lot of backfire, and it's just, it's a complete race car. It's an absolute thrill being in this car. I mean, being in a turbo car, it doesn't matter what car it is, but being in a turbo car I find awesome because you hear the blow-off valve, all the turbo noises that you get. But I mean, a car like this is just insane. One thing that I've noticed too, honestly, for a supercar, it doesn't get like a crazy amount of attention. I was just in that the new Ford GT, and if you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link to it right now in the top of the video. But with the Ford GT, I mean, it looks like an absolute spaceship. So everybody is like looking and like breaking their necks, but to a lot of normal people, they see this car and they see a Porsche. Now, a Porsche again is a high-end car, but I feel like this is more of a car enthusiast car. So I guess to most people, they see this car and they just see like a fancier looking car. I love how like normal people use that term, by the way, like fancy car, especially when they're talking like something like this. I mean, yes, it is high end, but for the most part, it's more performance than luxury, at least in my opinion. But yeah, it is also pretty cool seeing someone see this car and just absolutely breaking their neck, because again, to most car enthusiasts know what this car is. Most car enthusiasts know what a GT3 is. And I guess to more normal people, again, like I just said, it's kind of like another Porsche, which I find laughable, because comparing this to a 911, to a regular 911, it's really not much of a comparison at all. But I mean, you kind of find the same dynamic on the streets if you're driving like something like a Nissan Skyline, at least here in the States, where car enthusiasts definitely know what it is, car enthusiasts love it, but for the most part, people don't really see, generally normal people don't really see the value in it. Now, definitely after a while of driving this car, obviously the carbon fiber back, full-blown racing seats definitely do get uncomfortable, but still, if you're gonna track this car, it's what it's designed for. And I can only imagine how this thing behaves on a track environment, because again, with everything being as tight as it is, it's probably one of, if not the best cars to have on a track. All right, guys, so that's pretty much just gonna wrap up today's video. This car was a blast to film and drive. So yeah, again, guys, definitely be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe down below if you haven't already. It helps me out a lot. And like always, thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.